Are you an eBay seller who thinks about moving to Vinted? Well, think twice. Let me show you something that you have to know before you ditch eBay for Vinted. Hello and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Polish Pete, eBay reseller based in UK. I buy cheap ladies clothing in bulk and I sell them individually on eBay for profit. Today I would like to talk about, or rather compare, those two online platforms, online marketplaces that we've got in UK, eBay and Vinted, how they perform side to side, and is it even viable to ditch eBay and move exclusively to Vinted. But before we start, if you're interested in this kind of content, please consider subscribing to the channel, as literally this is what I talk about week in, week out, basically reselling only. So guys, I sell cheap ladies clothing, run-of-the-mill stuff, your high street brands, your supermarket brands, obsolete brands, unbranded items, nothing special. I buy in bulk, and this is what you get when you buy in bulk. I don't get designer clothing in those lots, basically. And what I'm going to tell you and show you applies to that. This is what I sell, and if you sell something else, you may get different results, and not necessarily they will be better than mine. So I wanted to compare the performance of those two major platforms, and what I'm going to show you are results from about last 6 weeks. Let's jump to my laptop because I want to show you some numbers, and those numbers will determine what we will be talking about later. So guys, we are on my Vinted account. As you can see, we are looking at this number here. As you can see, I've got 2,368 items active on Vinted, and in last more or less 6 weeks, I have sold 24 of them, right? That thing is bad in its own, but I've got 195 hidden items. What are those hidden items? Oops, these are items that I have sold on eBay. So when I sold them on eBay, I have to hide them here. I have to hide them here on Vinted. I don't delete them because I can always have a return on eBay, and then I won't be able to put it back on Vinted because it will say that I already had that item listed, and I would have to change the photos basically. So anyway, in last 6 weeks, more or less, I have sold 24 items on Vinted out of 2,368 active items. And in the same time, I had to take down 195 items because they have sold on eBay. So I've made an effort and I spent time to put those items on Vinted. And then I had to spend more time and put more effort to take them down because they have sold on eBay. It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. So guys, the numbers speak for themselves really. There is nothing to compare, literally nothing to compare. All my items on Vinted are at least £1 cheaper than on eBay, just to accommodate that buyer's fees that are on Vinted. So that £1 difference make them more or less at the same price that they are on eBay, more or less. And for me and for my stock, Vinted just doesn't work. I have browsed the platform for some time, trying to find sellers who shift a lot of stock that is similar to my stock. And all I have found were people who were selling this stuff for 3 pounds plus postage. At this kind of price, I can't see them working for more than £5 an hour. If I didn't have eBay and I would have to rely on Vinted to make my money and sell my stuff for 2-3 pounds a pop, then even working 24/7, sourcing, photographing and listing, I would not be able to make a living out of that. We are talking about shifting like 1,000 items a month as a minimum. That is literally impossible because there is not enough buyers on Vinted to achieve this kind of numbers. And like I've said, it is working for $5 an hour. Now, don't get me wrong. If you source and photograph your items for eBay and the only additional work is cross-listing, then it's not that bad. But the problem is in prices. Why would I sell something for 2-3 pounds plus postage on Vinted when it can literally sell tomorrow on eBay for like 8 to 10 pounds plus postage? And even with eBay fees, I will still earn way more by selling it on eBay. So why Vinted prices are so low? There are 3 reasons in my opinion. 1, the type of the buyer. There is way many more young people there. I've talked about this before. In terms of disposable income, it grows with the age of the buyer. The older the buyer is, the more money they have to spend. In general. Number 2, private sellers who clear their wardrobes and they are selling their stuff cheap because they want to get rid of them. Yeah, they don't want to make profit. They don't even know what profit is. They do it to have fun because I say they don't know what the profit is. Of course they don't, because if they buy something for 20 quid in the shop and 3 years later they sell it for 3 quid on Vinted, there is no profit in this. There is 27 quid loss. Yeah. Those people do it for fun. They do it to get some extra money from items that they consider free because they don't remember that they have paid 20 quid for it 3 years ago or 30 quid for it 3 years ago. In their minds, they literally can afford to sell this stock at such ridiculously low prices, because that's extra money for them, and on top of that, they don't see their time and effort as something that has a value because they do it for fun. And number 3, when was the last time that you have seen a Vinted ad that says buy stuff on Vinted? All I was able to see was sell your stuff on Vinted. That has created a situation where there is a ton of sellers and not so many buyers. This saturation with sellers, especially in ladies' clothing, is even worse than it is on eBay, in my opinion. And in fact, I haven't seen a Vinted ad on YouTube for ages. I mean for ages, 2, 3, 4 years ago, it was constantly Vinted, sell on Vinted, Vinted, sell on Vinted. Now, I haven't seen it for like a year, right? All I am selling on Vinted are items that I had on eBay for a year or 2. Yeah, items that I have dropped the price down significantly, so this price matches the prices on Vinted. And if you are a serious eBay seller, this is what Vinted is good for. To flog items that you are ready to push out cheap just to get rid of them. And if you want to say everyone is on Vinted now, that's why I don't get any sales on eBay, well, you are mistaken, with all due respect, right? eBay is still way bigger than Vinted is. eBay UK sells way more items than Vinted sells in entire Europe. These are facts. You just need to compare the numbers reported by both companies and you will come to the same conclusion. Guys, if everybody was on Vinted, prices would be higher. Stock would go faster for more money. Because the stock is going for 30% of what it could go on eBay, it means that there is no buyers there. Just that's how market works, basically. If market is flooded with items, items are cheap. And on top of everything else, in my opinion, in my case, for the stock that I sell, for the knowledge that I've got way more control on eBay than I've got on Vinted. I know how algorithm works on both platforms, and I can control my results to some degree on eBay, and I can't control my results on Vinted at all. I know how eBay algorithm works, and I gave you examples and explanations in my previous videos many times. Algorithm on Vinted, on the other hand, is super simple, like the entire platform. Everything is so simple that it's just too simple, right? On Vinted, you list your item, algorithm starts to push it out. It does it for 3 to 5 days, depending on the traction that item gets. And if item doesn't sell in those 3 to 5 days, it's basically dead as dodo, right? Dead as dodo. I mean, you can sell an old item here and there, but you have to have a lot of items there to sell an old item. With almost 2,500 items listed on Vinted, I get a sale like out of old item maybe once a week if I'm lucky, right? Everything else that I sell are just freshly listed items. Or I sell a freshly listed item and then customer makes a bundle and adds a couple of old items to that fresh item. But I got that buyer from that fresh item, in my opinion, right? And I get 3 to 5 sales over the weekend out of 70 items that I have listed on Friday. And then as soon as weekend ends, it's dead as dodo until the next Friday when I list another 70 items on Vinted. And it worked like that for months. Yeah. To me, I cross my items on Vinted because I've got nothing better to do. I mean, I haven't been home to photograph items for a year, right? Everything that I had to list on eBay has been listed there for months. But as soon as I go home and I photograph some new items, I will not touch Vinted with a barge pole. 100% my time and effort will be committed to eBay, to put those items on eBay, to list all of them there and give them a chance to be sold, right? I've made the decision that from this point, from the point when I will go home and I photograph some more items, I will put those items on eBay and I will not put them on Vinted for at least 12 months, right? If item won't sell on eBay in 12 months, then and only then I'm ready to cross-list it on Vinted, right? Because I'm ready to get rid of it, I'm ready to drop the price, I'm ready to accept lowball offer. Then and only then I'm ready to cross-list on Vinted. But first I will give it 12 months on eBay, yeah? You may say, but there is no fees on Vinted. Sure, there is no fees on Vinted, but there is also no sales on Vinted. I guess you get what you pay for. I know that I would rather sell 200-300 items a month on eBay paying fees than sell 20 items on Vinted without paying fees. Because the profit from those 20 items on Vinted will buy me chicken feed, but will not keep the roof over my head. Yeah? But everybody to his own. If you see the future there, by all means, feel free to list there. Feel free to commit yourself to Vinted. At the end of the day, who am I to say that you shouldn't, right? And that will be all for today, guys. I hope you found this video interesting. If you have, please don't forget to click that like button on your way out. If you wish to support the channel further and you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. Have a great week. I'll see you next time. God bless you all and bye-bye.